Hello friends, I hope you all are doing well. I, CA Pujan Kapadia, welcome you all on my today's lecture on the subject Mercantile Law. Friends, in the last lecture, we have started with the topic the Indian Contract Act 1872. Subheading was Contract, Meaning and Nature. In this particular topic, we had basically covered various definitions, difference between agreement and contract. Let's take a quick look of what we have covered till date. The first definition that we studied was proposal or offer. It was defined under section 2, clause A. In that, I have given you two examples. One example was I want to start the startup, and for that I want investment. So what I'm doing, I'm approaching venture capitalists, inviting them, showing my willingness so that they come and invest in my startup. So what I'm doing basically, I'm showing them my willingness that you do something. That is, you come and invest in my startup. Second example what I give was, I want to start cab system, a cab business, a cab startup. Fine. For that, what I'm asking is, I'm asking the existing cab businesses, requesting them not to do business in my particular area. Now यहाँ पे मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? I am trying to say them no. आप ये चीज मत करिए. Fine. So over here, I am using two words. When one person signifies to another, first is his willingness to do, and second is to abstain from doing anything. कुछ करने के लिए या कुछ ना करने के लिए, with a view to obtaining the assent of that another person to such act or abstinence. What is my main purpose? I want to get assent from the person whom I am showing my willingness. Basically, this entire mechanism is known as proposal or offer. The key takeaway, the key words that we need to learn from this definition are, first is I need to show my willingness. Why I'm doing so? Because I want the assent of the person to whom I'm showing my willingness. I'm showing either to do something or to abstain from doing something. So this is my first definition for proposal. Second is promise or acceptance. It is defined under section 2, clause B. When the person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent thereto. For example, when I have offered, I have proposed the venture capitalist to come and invest in my startup. Now, if he says yes, that okay, I am willing to invest, what he is doing? He is signifying his assent. In this particular scenario, the proposal is said to be accepted. So when a proposal is accepted, it becomes a promise. This was our second definition, that is signifies being done, that the assent is being given, significance is being done by the person to whom the offer has been made. Basically, when the proposal gets accepted, it is known as promise. The main keyword is signifies his assent. Moving forward to the third definition, section 2, clause E, agreement. Every promise or every set of promises forming the consideration for each other is an agreement. I told you in this particular case, there should be two reciprocal things. Fine. If you are promising something and you are getting something as a promise, fine. For example, what I have done, I have invited them to invest in my company, promising them that if I am doing this business, I'll be providing them X percentage of shareholding. This is a promise that I did. What promise they are doing? They are promising that they are going to invest X amount in my particular startup. So basically, there is nothing. There is an exchange of promises. One promise is forming a consideration. Consideration means something in written. So when one promise forms a consideration from the another one, it is said to be an agreement. Important keywords over here is there should be a promise or a set of promises. Consideration means something in written. Proposal plus acceptance is equal to agreement. Now I have taken two examples over here. First example that I took was of the rent agreement. For example, I have let out my property to a tenant for a rent of rupees 10,000 per month. Now, if my tenant is not paying 10,000 rupees rent, then can I go to the court of law and file a case against him? Answer is yes. So basically, this is a legal agreement. Second example I gave you was that I have decided, I have agreed with my family that I would take them to a road trip, on a road trip once in a month. Now, by some reason, if I failed to take them on a road trip, can they sue me in the court of law? Answer would be probably no. So basically, such kind of agreement are domestic agreement. So basically what I want to prove over here is an agreement can be a legal agreement also. It can be domestic agreement also. It is totally dependent on the purpose for which you are entering into an agreement. Next definition that we took was contract, defined in section 2 clause H. An agreement enforceable by law. Important point is whenever you are entering into an agreement, if it is enforceable by law, that if someone is not keeping up their promise, the another person who is being facing loss can file a suit against that person. Such agreements are known as enforceable by law. So if your agreement is enforceable by law, it is known as the contract. There is one statement that we should learn over here is all agreements are not contract, because as we studied, some agreements are enforceable by law, like rent agreement wala example, but some agreements cannot be enforceable by law, like family road trip wala example. So basically I can say all agreements are not contracts, but at the same time all contracts are definitely agreement, because unless there is an agreement you cannot reach to the contract. So all contracts are always the agreement. Then we have looked into the basic point of difference between agreement and contract. The few points that I would like to recall once again was, first was the section, second is enforceability by law. Agreement cannot be enforceable, but contract can be enforceable. Legal object, is it necessary to have something that should be legal? Answer is it may be, it may not be, because road trip was not a legal object to find. But in case of contract, it is always a legal object. Consideration, whether I was getting something in written if I was taking my family on a road trip, answer is no, I was not getting basically. So there can be a consideration, there cannot be a consideration. But in case of contract, consideration is must. Next is damages. If someone is breaking the thing, breaking the agreement, can you claim for the damages? For example, I refuse my family that I am not going to take you to the road trip. Can they claim damages from me? Answer is no, they cannot. So agreement, there is no point of claiming the damages. But in case of contract, it is legally enforceable by law. If my tenant says no, I am not going to pay you rupees 10,000, then I can claim for the damages. Is there any binding nature in agreement? It is no, but in contract it is yes. Last was formula. When a proposal gets accepted, there is a proposal plus acceptance is known as agreement. And when the agreement becomes enforceable by law, it becomes a contract. So this was the basic difference that we have covered between agreement and contract. Then we have taken a quick look on what is valid contract. I made you know guys that it was written under section 10 that all agreements are contract. If there exists, there are certain conditions, there are certain points which needs to be present to make the agreement a valid contract. All these points were discussed by us. Don't worry, the topic of the day that we are going to cover is on this points only, in which we are going to take a point one by one and we are going to do a detailed discussion on it. So I'm not repeating as of now. Only thing you need to remember as of now from this slide is valid contract is being stated under section 10 of the Indian Contract Act 1872. Remember this section 10. Then you guys tested your knowledge, which I guess all might have got the correct answers. So this is something that we have covered till date. Now moving ahead with the today's topic, we are just going to cover only one topic today. What are the essentials of a valid contract? If I want to say that a contract is valid, it is legally enforceable by law, then what all are the points? What are the basic requirements that should be the part of my contract? So we are going to take each and every essential one by one. The first point is there should be a proposal and there should be the acceptance. Minimum two parties are required for a proposal or an acceptance. You very well know we have covered both this definition under section 2 clause A and under section 2 clause B. What is proposal? Basically, I am showing my willingness to some person to do something or to abstain from doing something. कुछ करने के लिए या कुछ ना करने के लिए. What is the main objective? To obtain the assent, to obtain the confirmation from that person. So one person is showing willingness to another person. So we can justify the first point over here. There should be minimum two parties. There can be more than two parties, but minimum how many parties do you require? Minimum you require two parties. Second is one person is offering, that I was offering venture capitalists to come and invest in my company. That was the offer made by me. So who is offering? I am offering. Venture capitalist is saying, yes, okay, I am ready to invest in your company. What he has done, he has accepted my offer. So one person is always going to offer something and the another person is going to accept that thing. Now there are certain words that you need to remember over here. Your offer and acceptance. Firstly, it should be legal. It should not be there for any illegal task. It should always be legal. Second is, it should be absolute. Absolute means it should be in totality. It should not be like in something in part. Fine. If you are offering something, it should be the absolute offer. And third is, it should be unconditional. It should not be based on certain condition. For example, venture capitalist says, I am ready to invest in your company with the condition that if it don't rain in this particular year. Now, first question comes in our mind, sir, rain or investment का कुछ relation है? Answer is no. But what he has done is he has kept some condition. So basically what we are going to study over here is we need to take a due care that either the proposal or the acceptance. In short, both of them should be legal, should be absolute, that is complete. It should not be in part. And third is it should be unconditional. There should not be any conditions linked with this particular part. I hope I'm clear with the first essential of a valid contract. So in order to say a contract to be valid, what is the first requirement? There should be a proposal, there should be the acceptance, for which we require minimum two parties. One is supposed to offer and the another is supposed to accept. It should be legal, it should be absolute, that is complete, not in part. And third is it should be unconditional. There should not be any condition attached. Moving to the second point, there should be legal relationships. First point is there should be the intention to create legal relationship. For example, I gave you the example of rent. Fine. I was having a property. I let out to the tenant at the rent of rupees 10,000. Now, what here we were actually proposing was we wanted to create a legal relationship of a landlord and a tenant. If anyone offers breaches our promise, that is, if we are not fulfilling our promise, the another person, in law terms, it is known as aggrieved party. Yes, students, I'm again repeating the word aggrieved party. That is the party who has to suffer. Fine. If my tenant is not paying me the rent of rupees 10,000, I become the aggrieved party because I am suffering. Fine. So first part is there should be the intention to create a legal relationship. Second, social or domestic agreements are not allowed. For example, I took the second example that I have promised my family to take on a road trip once in a month. Now, this was basically nothing. It was a domestic agreement. Such agreements are not allowed for a valid contract. So, to form a valid contract, it is compulsory that the intention of the parties should to be create legal relations. The third point that I have stated again, I have given you the example of rent agreement versus family trip once a year. So friends, I hope you are clear with the first 2 points. In the first point we studied, there should be the offer, there should be the acceptance. In second point we have learned, there should be the motive or the intention to create legal relations. You should not be entering into some domestic or the social agreements. Moving forward to the third point, lawful consideration. I hope till now you are clear with the word what is consideration. Something in written. For example, I am doing job at college. I am getting salary. Salary is the consideration of my work. Fine. There is a Latin word over here. I have told you guys in law we are going to come across many Latin words. So there is a Latin word over here, quid pro quo, which means something for something. If you are doing something, you should definitely get something. Fine. It is a simple logic. But in Latin, it is known as quid pro quo, which means something for something. It is nothing. It is your consideration. There is a second maxim which is written in Latin, ex nudo pacto, non obiter exio. Friends, it is not compulsory to learn this thing, but it is always advisable. If you can learn, you should learn because it leaves a good impression on the answer sheet of yours. What does this mean? A contract without consideration is void. So I can say if I am entering into a contract where there is no consideration, the contract will be deemed that it is not valid at all. As a result of which I have written into inverted commas, no consideration, no contract. For example, the college is hiring me to take the lecture, but they are not giving me something for something. Means I am going to take lecture, I am going to do something for the college, but in return what I am getting? Nothing. Then this is known as no contract. The contract is supposed to be told as a void contract. In short, we need to remember only one important point in this point, that if there is no consideration, there is not going to be any contract. So the maxim lays down as no consideration, no contract. I hope I'm clear till here. Fine. Let's move ahead. The fourth point is capacity of the parties. As you all know, when you are entering into a contract, you should be assured that the parties that are entering into a contract are competent enough to deal into the contract. So I have written over here, parties should be competent to contract. That is, they should be. First condition is they should be major. That is, their age should be either 18 years or above. A contract cannot be entered with the minor. There is a particular section, a long answer on this particular topic, like a contract with a minor, which we are going to deal in detail in the upcoming lessons. But as of now, what you need to remember, to be a competent party, your age limit should be 18 years or above. Second point is you should be of sound mind. Sound mind is you should be having a stable mind. You should not be of an unstable mind. Fine. So आप पागल नहीं होने चाहिए. You should be of a sound mind. You should be in a capacity to take rational decisions as and when needed. The third point is you are not disqualified from contracting. Means you are not the person who is disqualified from entering into a contract. In short, if you want to get qualified, you should not be. First point is lunatic. That is, you should not be mentally ill. Second is drunkard. That is, you should not be tagged as a drunkard and alcoholic who has no sense at the entire time. And the third is you should not be insolvent. That is, if you have declared yourself as an insolvent, you are in no position to enter into a contract. In short, you should be capable enough to enter into a contract if you are entering into a valid contract. Now, what is the proof of your capability? First point is you should be major. That is, your age should be 18 years or above. Second, you should be mentally sound. Your mind should be sound. And third, you should not be disqualified, which means you should not be mentally ill. That is, you should not be lunatic. Second is you should not be drunkard. You should not be alcoholic. And the third part is you should not be insolvent. That is, you should not have declared that I am having no money to pay off my liabilities. So this is the crux of this slide, capacity of parties to a contract. I'm just giving you 1 minute. This is a bit important slide. So I would just request you to go through all the names and try to remember the names which are written on the screen. Well, friends, I hope you have run all the 5 names. That is, you should be major, you should be of sound mind, you should not be lunatic, that is, you should not be mentally ill, you should not be drunkard, and you should not be insolvent. Moving ahead to the fifth point, there should be a free consent. What do you mean by consent? Two parties are agreeing upon the same thing in the same sense is known as consent. For example, I want to teach you mercantile law and you want to learn mercantile law. So what we are doing, we are agreeing upon the thing which is the same and in the same sense. What our purpose is, our main purpose is learning what mercantile law. And we both are said to be at the consent. So basically, what is consent? That you are agreeing upon the same thing in the same sense. Fine. Now, consent is said to be free when it is not caused by. It is said that there is a free consent if it is not caused by any of the things which are written over here. First is there should not be any kind of coercion. Coercion means fraud. Coercion means force. There should not be any kind of force. For example, what I'm doing is I'm coming to your place, I'm keeping the revolver on your head, and I'm telling if you won't be studying, then I'm going to shoot the trigger. Fine. So what I'm doing is I'm threatening you, I'm forcing you to study, which is wrong. So the consent that you are getting is should not be covered by the coercion. It should not be covered by the force. Second is undue influence. For example, you are in a dominant position and you are taking or you are misusing your position, then again your consent is not said to be free. Third is fraud. You are very well aware if you intentionally want to do something which is wrong, then again it should not covered under the free consent. Fourth is misrepresentation. You are intentionally stating something which is wrong. You are knowing that you are telling something wrong, but you are telling in such a manner that another person is going to interpret it in a wrong sense. Again, if you are getting consent by this manner, it is also not said to be free. And the last word written over is, there should be the word written over here, mistake. If there is a mistake, then also your consent is not said to be free. We are going to deal with these topics again in detail in the later chapters. Here, it is just a brief idea that when a consent is said to be free, it is said to be free if it is not covered by coercion, that is, there is no force. Second is, it is no there is no undue influence, that is, you are not misusing your power, your authority. Third is, there should not be any kind of fraud, there should not be any kind of misrepresentation, and there should not be any kind of mistake. This is basically free consent. Next is lawful object. If I want my contract to be termed as valid, my objective, my goal should be lawful. What is lawful basically? It should not be. First is, it should not be illegal. For example, you all know that selling liquor, alcohol in Gujarat is banned. Fine. So if I'm entering into a contract, the motive of which is selling of liquor in Gujarat, then my motive or my purpose or my object is going to be illegal. So my object should be lawful. It should not be illegal. Second point is, it should not be immoral. Now let's understand what is immoral. I have given an example. Landlord is renting his property, means landlord is providing his property on a rent. To whom? To the tenant, doing child trafficking from there. Landlord is aware that there is some wrong thing that is going to happen from his own place, but still he is renting his property for the purpose he is knowing which is wrong. Such objective is known as immoral objective. This is your second thing. Third is against public policy, that is restricting freedom of persons for good of community. For example, what I'm doing is, I'm entering into a contract of trading of something with an alien enemy. For example, for time being in force, India is having relations which are, you can say, not friendly, fine, enemy kind of relation with XYZ country. And what I'm doing is, I'm entering into a contract to sell my product with that particular XYZ company. Then again, for that time being, my object is to be told as a against public policy. I hope I am clear with all the 3 points. First was, it should not be illegal. That is example of selling liquor or alcohol in Gujarat. Second is, it should not be immoral. I was knowing that my property was going to be used for some wrong thing, like child trafficking, women trafficking, etc. That are all the wrong deeds. But still, I am renting my property for the purpose, and it is said to be immoral. Third point is against public policy, which means, for example, as of now, at the time of trading, I know that my country is not having friendly relationship. Relationship are like enemies with some particular country, and I am entering into a contract of selling my product with that particular country only. Then my contract is said to be against public policy, because I am not thinking of a good of the entire community. In short, to call my object to be lawful, it should not be covered under any of these three criteria. I hope I am clear. Moving ahead to the seventh part. Certainty of terms. Terms of the agreement, that is, all the terms that I am stating into the agreement must be definite and certain. It should not be vague. What is vague basically? It should not be unclear. It should not be ambiguous. That is, it is having two kinds of meaning. It can be interpreted in two different ways. No, it should be definite and certain. ऐसा है तो ऐसा ही होना चाहिए. Fine. It is known as that the certainty of terms. Next point is possibility of performance. Again, an important point. Agreement must be capable of being performed. If I'm telling or I'm entering into a contract that go to the star and bring one star down for me, it is something which is impossible. Fine. You should enter into a contract, the task of which is possible to be performed. The first point written over here is the agreement must be capable of being performed. Second is agreement to do impossible act, like चांद ताड़े तोड़ाओ, वो क्या हो जाएगा? It would be void. It would not be valid. Example: Mr. A promises to give rupees 10,000 to Mr. B if he proves that the sun rises from the west. Entire world knows that the sun rises from the east. So I am entering into a contract which is not practically possible to be performed. As a result of which, it would not be termed as a valid contract. So what is a valid contract? If there is a possibility of performance, then only we can add it in the definition of valid contract. And the last one, void agreements. You have come across this word many times. Void, void, void. Now let's understand what is basically void. Void is something that is not valid, means it is not valid or it is not legally binding. There are two technical words that you need to remember for void. That is something that is not valid or something that is not legally binding on someone. Then the agreement is supposed to be called as the void agreement. Agreement should not be expressly declared as void. If you are entering into an agreement and if you want to transform it into a lawful contract, valid contract, it should not be expressly declared as void. Under Indian Contract Act, there is a list of void agreements which is given from sections 26 to 30. It will be easier for you to remember because it is in the serial order itself, 26, 27, 28, 29 and 30. There are certain agreements which are stated in the act which are expressly declared as void. Let's go through it one by one. First agreement, section 26, agreement in restraint of marriage. You can never deny any person from marrying with someone. For example, Mr. X wants to marry with Miss Y, but his father is denying him that he should not marry with Miss Y. So if you're entering into a contract, father is telling, I am going to pay you 1 lakh rupees if you do not marry Miss Y. Then in this particular case, X wants to marry Y, but father is entering into a contract with X, stopping him, restraining him from marrying Miss Y. Now this is something, agreement which is in restraint of marriage. So it is expressly declared as void agreement. Second is section 27, agreement in restraint of trade. For example, I am a dealer who is dealing into the textile garments. I want to deal with Reliance Industries, but Mr. X comes up and enter into a contract that I am going to pay you 1 lakh rupees if you don't do business with Reliance Industries. Now, what Mr. X is doing basically, he is trying to enter into an agreement which is stopping me to trade with the supplier or the company I want to trade with. Fine. So he is restraining me from trading. So it is covered under section 27. Again, it is a void agreement. You cannot stop someone from trading with someone. Next is section 28, agreement in restraint of legal proceedings. You cannot stop someone from going for legal proceedings. For example, I feel I am aggrieved of something. We take our example of tenant. My tenant has not paid me rupees 10,000 current. He is not paying the same thing since last 1 year. Now I'm fed up and I want to file a suit. I want to file a case against him. And Mr. X comes and says, see, I am going to give you 1 lakh rupees. Don't file a case against my tenant. Now again, he is stopping me from going for legal proceedings, which is again void under section 28. Moving ahead, agreement which are having uncertain meaning. You cannot make out what actually agreement wants to say. Having such uncertain meanings are also covered under the void agreements under section 29. The last part is section 30, wagering agreements. Any agreement related to gambling. You don't know what is going to be the outcome. For example, Mr. X comes to me and says, if India wins the match, I am going to pay you this much amount, and if India loses the match, you are going to pay me this much amount. Now in this particular case, we both of us are not aware about what is the outcome going to be. We will come to know only when the match ends. Now agreement which has entered in such a manner is known as wagering agreement, which is also expressly declared as void under section 30. So this is all about void agreement, the agreements which are not valid or which are not legally binding on anyone. So friends, let's recall all the points quickly. We were studying essentials of valid contract. What all points are needed to say a contract to be valid? First was there should be a proposal, there should be the acceptance, minimum 2 parties, one should propose, another should accept. It should be legal, it should be absolute, and it should be unconditional. Second is there should be the intention to format a legal relationships. It should not be the domestic relationship like road trip family. Third point is there should be a lawful consideration, something for something. If there is no consideration, there is no contract. Fourth is parties should be capable enough to enter into a contract. For that, they should be major, that is 18 years or above. They should be of sound mind. They should not be lunatic, drunkard, or insolvent. Fifth was free consent. Your consent is supposed to be said free if it is free from any kind of force or coercion. It is free from any kind of undue influence, like you are not taking disadvantage of your dominant position. It is free from any kind of fraud. It is free from any kind of misrepresentation, or it is free from any kind of mistake. Next is lawful object. The object of your contract should be legal. It should be lawful. It should not be illegal. It should not be immoral. It should not be against public policy. Next is the terms of the agreement should be certain. It should not be like that, which are having double meaning, which are unclear. Next, the performance for which you are entering into a contract should be practically possible. You cannot contract for something which is impossible. And the last is your agreement should not be expressly declared as void. Section 26 to section 30 lays down the point. Like you cannot stop someone from marrying, you cannot stop someone from trading, you cannot stop someone from going ahead with the legal proceedings. You cannot have a contract or an agreement which are having uncertain meaning. You cannot enter into any wagering, that is gambling kind of agreements. All such agreements are expressly declared as void, which means they are not valid and they are not legally binding. So this was the long answer, which is generally asked by VNSU as a 7-mark long question. Like, what is valid contract? Valid contract was defined under section 10. State the essential elements of the valid contract. So by this, I'm ending my topic from my end. Now it's the time for you guys to test your knowledge. The rules remains the same. I will be giving you 25 to 30 seconds, under which you need to mark the correct options for your MCQ. After completion of all the questions, we are going to discuss the correct answers. I hope you are ready with the same, and your time starts now. Well, friends, I hope you are ready with your answers. So let's discuss the correct answers. Question number 1, very easier one. Essentials for a contract to be valid is stated under section. Correct answer is 10. That is option B. Question number 2. For an object to be lawful, it may be, we have studied one point, lawful object. We have studied if we want our object to be lawful, it should not be illegal, immoral, or against public property. But there was no mention of the word, that is option D, complicated. So our objective can be complicated, fine. So the correct answer over here is option D, complicated, because the question is for an object to be lawful, it may be, it can be complicated. So correct answer is option D, complicated. Question 3. A minor is a person who has not crossed the age of, we have studied this thing, if he has not crossed the age of 18 years, he is termed to be as a minor. He becomes major only when he attains the age of 18 years. Question 4. Agreement of the following. Which of the following is void agreement? We have studied the list from section 26 to section 30, which was specifically telling which agreements are expressly declared as void. First option is agreement to sell liquor in Maharashtra. I have told Maharashtra selling liquor is not banned. Fine. So basically it is not a void agreement. Agreement to teach students online. For example, what I am doing as of now, it is also not a void agreement. Third is agreement to sell goods which are perishable. Perishable means the longevity of which is very less. For example, food items. But we can sell goods which are food items. So again, it is also valid agreement. But option D, agreement in restraint of trade. Can you relate the Reliance Wala example? I wanted to do business with Reliance, but Mr. X came and told me that he is going to pay me 1 lakh rupees if I do not do business with Reliance company. In this particular thing, he is stopping me from entering into a trade. So this is basically expressly void agreement. So the correct answer to this question is option D, agreement in restraint of trade. Last question. Consent is said to be free. We have learned the topic of free consent. If it is caused by, correct answer is A, mutual agreement. If both the parties are ready on the same terms, fine, with the same context, then it is said to be a free consent. So if there is a mutual agreement, your consent is said to be free. It should not be caused by force, that is coercion, undue influence, that is misuse of dominant position, or misrepresentation. So correct answer to this question is option A, mutual agreement. Friends, I hope you are clear with the topic of essentials of valid contract. I thank you all for your patient listening and hope to see you all very soon in my next lecture with the next topic. Have a stay safe at home and enjoy. Thank you.